Welcome everybody, this is Nihil and today we're taking a look at Nuclear Throne. This one has actually been available for a while now, but I'm making this video because when I was streaming it the other day, a lot of people didn't recognize the game, and that is completely unacceptable. This game should definitely be on your radar, and if it's not, here you go. Nuclear Throne is a top-down roguelike action game by Vlambeer. Vlambeer is an indie developer consisting of a whole 2 people, although I believe a total of like 6 worked on this particular title. They've also made some other games, most notably Super Crate Box, but right now we're going to take a look at Nuclear Throne. If you can't tell by now, I absolutely love this game. It's definitely one of my favorites and I play it all the time. The game has you taking control of any number of characters in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Your goal is to fight your way through each level with the hopes of reaching the Nuclear Throne. But the road to the throne is not an easy one. In fact, it's exceedingly difficult. Each level is procedurally generated from one of several different biomes. For the most part, you'll progress linearly through these biomes, although there are a few hidden levels and shortcuts. Every biome has a unique set of enemies, each of them trying to kill you in a variety of different ways. As you progress, you'll find a wide variety of weapons. These are primarily from weapon chests, but sometimes also drop from certain enemies. The weapons you get are random and work on a tier system, so you never know what you're going to get, but you do know that you won't have a chance of getting something like a blood cannon until later in the game. The weapons themselves are incredibly unique. There are 5 different ammo types and numerous weapons for each one. I think there's something like well over 100 guns. One of the more amazing aspects of the game is not only does each weapon feel different, but they radically change the way you play the game. The way you tackle certain rooms with a minigun, for instance, is going to be completely different than the way you would go about it with a crossbow. The huge variety of weapons combined with the randomizations of the drops means you'll almost never have the same run. There's also an experience system. Every enemy you kill will drop these little bits of radiation, and if you gather enough of them, you'll go up in level. Every time your character levels up, you'll get the opportunity to pick a new mutation. These are things that change your character in a couple of different ways. Some of them are pretty straightforward stat upgrades like faster movement or more HP. Some of them affect your weapons like homing crossbow bolts, the distance on shotgun shells, and there are some you need to be a little more creative with. For instance, one mutation allows you to destroy terrain by walking into it. While this doesn't help you kill things directly, it lets you do things like tunnel out of a dangerous area or create a safe haven. And much like the weapons, the mutations you receive are also going to be random. You'll get to pick one from a pool of 4 every time you level up. Each pool is randomly selected from the mutations you haven't yet picked. Now keep in mind that the game does very little to hold your hand. Progress is going to be entirely on you. You'll unlock new characters as you go, and each character has different special abilities, but the unlocked characters aren't any better than the ones you start with, they're just different. There's also a hidden way to get new starting weapons on each of your characters, but of course the one you're going to get is random, and they're just small upgraded versions of the first 2 weapons. If you want to get further in Nuclear Throne, you're just going to have to get better at it. Now, I know a few people that actually don't like this aspect of the game. A friend of mine claimed that the game was completely RNG based. That good runs were just luck, and that's a critique I've seen pop up a couple of times. But in reality, I think that's just not true. Some of my best runs have been with early tier weapons all the way through, and I've noticed when I do get stuck, it tends to be around the same place, regardless of what character I'm using or what weapons I've gotten in my run. I've also seen people on YouTube and on Twitch that can beat the game and loot the game consistently. If there was such a heavy emphasis on RNG, you really wouldn't see this happening. I think the problem is that people are getting comfortable with a certain playstyle and not adapting to what is available to them. I think it's all about learning to use the game mechanics to your advantage. For instance, there's a certain mutation called Gamma Guts. It causes enemies to take damage when you walk into them. When I first started playing, I assumed it wasn't good, because when you walk into an enemy and touch them, you also tend to take damage. But after using it a couple of times in different runs, I started to realize that if the damage from Gamma Guts actually kills the enemy, it nullifies the damage that you would take from touching them. And if you combine this with another mutation called Scary Face, which lowers enemy HP, it just completely changes 2 of the biomes. You can get way more aggressive, and it just radically changes your gameplay. What I'm trying to say here is that none of the mutations are actually bad, and you can do well with almost any combination of weapons. You just gotta learn to adjust the way you play based on what you're gonna get. And as with any roguelike game, you're gonna die, and die a lot. But death here doesn't feel like a big deal. I think on a successful clear of the base game, I average like 14 or 15 minutes, and I think that's considered pretty slow by people who really know what they're doing. So the runs are fast, you know, you're gonna go and die and then just get back up and get right back into it. And like any good roguelike, the game features good replay value. In fact, almost infinite replay value. As of this recording, I've got exactly 100 hours into the game, and to be honest, I haven't even come close to seeing all of the content. The basic game itself isn't all that long, but if you look around at the end of it, you can actually find a way to loop the game, and the consecutive playthroughs on the same life are vastly different. There's also tons of secret areas and bosses and shortcuts. There's a lot to find, and it'll take you lots and lots of time to get through all of it. You know, I remember when I first saw the game, I assumed I was gonna hate it. A friend bought it for me when it was still in early access, and you know, I'm looking through the game tags, and oh, it's another roguelike, another pixel art, it's capped at 30 FPS. There's just this huge checklist of things that, you know, you usually see on a bad indie game. And I installed it, and I'm like, alright, I'll give it a shot, but you know, I'm going in expecting to hate this. And after my first run, I just couldn't deny how much fun I was having. I was just completely shut up by the gameplay. The combat is fast, and it's some of the smoothest I've ever seen on this kind of game. It's this like perfect blend of dungeon crawler and bullet hell. You know, you're going through these levels, they're well designed, they're fun to look at, they're fun to play in, but you can't get kind of too lost in the level because, you know, all of a sudden you'll just be overwhelmed by the amount of projectiles coming at you. And it's one of those things where, you know, the game may not look that precise with the art style and the frame rate, but you'll see, you know, this tiny little gap in this huge wave of bullets coming at you, and you'll be able to just veer through it seamlessly. And the art style of the game is also really, really cool. You know, I'm not a big fan of pixel art games. There are a couple that really stand out, but there have just been so many released, it's sort of become this excuse to be lazy with design. But this one is really well done. All of the sprites are very well made. They're all handcrafted. They all fit together perfectly in the world that's been created, and it seems alive, you know. There's even like a made-up language in the game for people in the wasteland, and you know, a good friend of mine is a linguist, and he says that it's actually a pretty legit language. It's just they've put so much detail into the art and the world, and it all comes together really well. And the audio in the game might actually be its best feature. You know, great gameplay, great art, but the audio is like the standout here. Not only do you have this phenomenal soundtrack, you know, there's great music in the background, in the menu. Every biome has a song playing in the background that is completely unique to it. Even the small secret levels have these unique soundtracks going on in the back. But then all of that is really trumped by just the sound effects in the game. I mean, it's the click of the weapon, the sound of each shot fired, you know, the sound of you hitting an enemy, the sound of you taking a hit, even the little bits of dialogue of the made-up language between each character. I mean, just listen to this. Just listen to some of the sound effects in-game. Oh, it's so good. I could listen to the sounds of this game non-stop. I want to get the soundtrack and put it in my car and just listen to it all day. Well, it's probably not a fair review unless I also point out some of the game's flaws. The incredible difficulty can be viewed as a flaw. I love games that really punish me. I know a lot of people don't. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not really for the casual gamer. It's going to take you a long time to get anywhere. You know, progress is slow. You really have to work at it to get to the next level, to get to the next biome, to beat the next boss. I know a lot of people that have played it and have never actually seen the end. And as I said before, you know, I've got 100 hours of play in it, and I've still not seen all the content, and part of me doubts that I'll ever see some of the secret bosses and things like that. So if you're looking for a game that you can just kind of sit down with and play through and see the end of and be done with, this isn't the game for you. It'll drive you crazy, and you'll probably hate it. For somebody like me who loves this kind of gameplay, the biggest complaint I have is that the co-op is local only, and it ends up with like one person on the keyboard and another person on the gamepad, or you can use double gamepads, but to be honest, I didn't think the controls felt nearly as good with a controller. That's probably less of an issue on console. If you're playing there, you know, you're used to playing it on a controller, so obviously you can use the double controller co-op, no problem. So yeah, that's Nuclear Throne. If you don't have it already, go and buy it. It's only $11.99 on Steam. I mean, I've gotten a solid 100 hours out of the game for, you know, an $11.99 price tag. That's insane. It's also available on console in their associated stores. I believe it's the same price everywhere, just that $12. Also, go check out some of Vlambeer's other stuff. I believe you can actually download Super Crate Box and Gun Gods for free. Anyway, if you like this video, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want more content, go ahead and subscribe. It's been fun, and I will see you guys in the next one.